Wanted to further continue our conversation by knowing how we ask non-verbally, because I have a feeling a lot of us ask for things and we don't even realize we're asking.
Well, the important thing to realize is that it is not through your words that you ever ask.
Could you expound on that? How are other ways that we ask? Yesterday, I was driving to the conference. I was going to stop, have dinner with someone in Austin, was really having a good time, was doing a little bit of triple-digit driving, enjoying the road, enjoying my car, and just having a really good time, feeling great, and all of a sudden there's noise under my hood and I've thrown a serpentine fan belt. Did part of my being ask to slow down? Did somebody on the road think he needs to slow down? Was it just an old belt that wore out? What happened?
Well, the timing of those belts is often very compliant with what is most important for you. In other words, do you find yourself frequently having an experience that you would call a breakdown only to feel appreciation about where it happened or the timing of it? And so
yes, it was perfect.
Things of a physical nature do wear. And of course, it's nice if you receive the prompt that lets you be aware of it in advance. When you think about asking, and when you consider that it is happening through words, then you have to say, well, then that would mean anyone who is nonverbal, like all of the beasts, must not be able to ask. And then you might say, well, just because they don't speak our language doesn't mean they're not asking. In other words, you could ask, you might say, in the language of English or the language of German or the language of Russian or the language of Pekingese or Siamese
yes.
in your beasts.
Yes.
And then you say, well, maybe it isn't through our words at all. And we say it is in the language of vibration.
Okay.
Now, sometimes the language of your words matches the language of your vibration, and when that happens, it's a nice thing. In other words, we like to see it when you are asking for something with your words and you are in the same time in vibrational harmony with what you're asking for, because we know that the manifestation is shortly on the heels of all of that. But what happens with most people, and it is the reason for your question, is that people are commonly asking for something from a place of not having it. So their dominant vibration is about shortage rather than about fulfillment. Their words are saying what they want, but their vibration is not about what they want, it's about where they are. We will see our physical friends, they'll stand here and they'll say, I'm not happy where I am. And even if they're not saying the words, that's the vibration that they're offering. And then they would say, I would rather be over there. And we'll say, well, tell us about what's over there. And they'll say, well, it's a lot better than over here. So now we're talking about over here some more. And then we say, well, what would it be like if you were over there? And then they say, well, first let me explain to you how awful it has been over here and why I really want to go over there. And we say, all the time you spend justifying why you'd rather be somewhere else or explaining where you are vibrating about here. And so even though you think you're asking to go over there, you're really vibrating about over here. And so asking, all of it's happening vibrationally.
Okay.
In every moment, the asking is so much more detailed, so much more subtle, so much more information than any of you have any idea that you're giving. You are constantly exuding preference because from your personal perspective, you are perceiving preference, which means even if you were not speaking it, your consciousness is formulating the preference within you. And that preference is noted by all that is. That's why you don't have to speak it. You just have to prefer it, to notice it, to conclude it. Words are an absolute non-issue. What is an issue is how quickly you can then become a vibrational match to your own desire. So if you're hoping for something, you're not quite a match. If you're yearning, I really want this thing that I do not have, you're not a match. If you're optimistic, you're a match. If you're looking forward to it, you're a match. If you're happy where you are while you're on your way to something that you will like even better, you're a match. If you're in the attitude of, wouldn't it be nice, you're a match. If you're in the attitude of, all in good time, you're a match. If you're in the attitude of, things are unfolding nicely for me, you're a match. I never get it done, you're a match. But when you say, this should have been done, you're not a match. Or, what's taking so long, You're not a match. Or why isn't it happening for me? You're not a match. When you feel jealousy because someone else is getting something that you want, you're not a match. When you feel good, you're a match. When you feel less than good, you're less than a match.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Back to the belt. If you're ready.
We are indeed. We've talked about this manager called law of attraction. And sometimes physical beings prefer that there is an individual consciousness, often you label it God, who is looking out for and orchestrating everything. And we would have to say to you that this source energy, which includes this law of attraction, as you think in terms of it being this manager that is responding to the vibration, then you can understand how all things are happening. In other words, it's not an arbitrary, based upon some set of beliefs that you may not be following. It is this always consistent law that you can tell how it is working, and you can feel your relationship with it by paying attention to the way you feel. So begin by saying, law of attraction, or the manager, or universal forces, or even call it God if you prefer, is aware of my desires and orchestrating circumstances and events for my benefit. Always opening doors toward the fulfillment of that which I'm reaching for. So you're flying down the freeway at over 100 miles an hour, and you are pure in your vibration. In other words, it's a vibration of only exhilaration, or it's a vibration of I'm getting away with something that I shouldn't be getting away with, or it's a vibration of I have a magnificent machine that I adore, or it's a vibration of I have a magnificent machine that I have adored that has been wonderful at its prime that I'm wanting to replace. Or, in other words, there are many combinations of vibrations that are within you, and we can tell you which ones are active by what manifests.
Okay.
So you say, well, was it just a weak belt? And we say, never only that.
Okay. Okay.
In other words, even the inspiration to drive at triple digits. In other words, do you feel any relationship with the speed at which you were driving and the breaking of the belt?
Looking back on it, probably so.
And were you pleased with the timing of the breaking of the belt?
It was an inconvenience, but it was close to the dealership.
That's what
where
we're getting.
Where it had originally been purchased.
That's what we're getting at.
They had the part in stock.
So when you look back on it, you would say, couldn't have happened at a better time or place.
It was the best place in the world for it to happen.
So do you think that the inspiration to speed up, to accelerate the wearing of the belt, could have had something to do with a broader preference that had been set into motion on lots of occasions before? Like, I like things to be efficient, I always like to be running, I like to be safe,
Yes.
I like to enjoy my... In other words, can you see how whole combinations of things that were important to you were inspired to conclude it was a sort of culmination that occurred as a result of a bunch of vibrations that you held, and we would say everything was pretty good within that, wouldn't you?
It was perfect.
So let's say that your belt breaks and it's inconvenient and you walk 5 miles and you don't like the experience of it, and then out of that experience, even if you don't say a word to anyone about it, is a preference that rises from you. And the preference would go sort of like, I'm wanting to stay up on top of the maintenance of my vehicle. I'm wanting to be inspired about the replacement of anything so that I do not get stranded. That's how those things come about. We are calling this gathering the art of allowing, because what we want you to focus upon is, am I in my physical body right now focused upon something that is activating a vibration within me that is causing me to be in the state of allowing the well-being that is me, the well-being that I so much want and absolutely deserve. So when you feel joy, you're there. When you feel exhilaration, you're there. When you feel love, you're there. When you feel appreciation, you're there. When you feel frustration, you're not quite there. When you feel anger, you're even further from being there. When you feel depression or fear, you are not there. Now, many would say, somebody should do something about that. Somebody should get those fearful things and get rid of them. Somebody should round up all the terrorists and kill them so that I don't have to be afraid. And somebody should round up all of the diseases and snuff them out so that I don't have to be afraid. In fact, somebody pretty much needs to gather up everybody that doesn't think just like me and get rid of them. And then in this not much to worry about world, my fear will be gone. And we say, so will your creative edge. So will your ability to decipher. So will your ability to create new desire. Does that mean trauma and drama and tragedy must be on your doorstep in order for you to be a productive creator as you've intended? Not at all. But it does mean, as long as you stand in a place where you believe that somebody else has to do something about it before you can live your joyful life, then you are in a place of eternal entrapment, because you can't make them do it. You can't even get them to agree on what needs to be done. And if it needing to be done is necessary before you can feel good, then there's no hope for you. And of course, that isn't the way that it is at all, because you have the ability to guide your experience in powerful ways, because you have the ability to focus your attention, which means you have the ability to activate vibration within you, which means you have the ability to match your source energy anytime, anywhere. Life is supposed to be good. You did not intend struggle and hardship. You intended plenty to focus upon, to summon plenty of life through you. And it's a nice thing to watch, as we see that sometimes you get overwhelmed, and then you emanate desires to get your life into balance, and then the next thing you do, life is in balance. You cannot get it wrong, and you never get it done. And the reason you cannot get it wrong is because you never get it done. So if something is a little out of kilter, a desire emanates from you. As the desire emanates from you, source energy answers it. Your work is just to chill out, to relax, and let it in. And so in severe cases of disconnection or resistance, we recommend anything that distracts you, anything that could distract you from your discomfort. The thing about humans as they become adults is that you've trained yourself to dig in there and wrestle that thing to the ground and kill it. And so you keep wanting to focus upon it. If you've got a problem, you just want to focus upon it. You just want to chew on it. And what we're saying to you is, if you've got a problem and you give it any attention, it's going to get bigger. Law of attraction says that it must. And so that's why we recommend distraction. Some would say, Abraham, you're saying delude myself, and we say delude away. You're saying don't face reality, and we say not unless it's really good. You say you want me to put my head in the sand, and we say yes, and meditate while you're there. In other words, just sort of relax from whatever it is that has you aggravated and get yourself to a better feeling place. And here is the new process that we are wanting to focus your attention upon. We're calling it virtual reality. And what it is a process where, just like you were writing a screenplay, where you're the director, you get to choose everything about this moment in time. So you might say, all right, where is it going to be? Where does this scene take place? And we would encourage that you choose some place that feels good to you. You could choose any place that feels pleasant to you when you think about it. So you pick a place, and then you say, what time of day is it? Is it morning? Is it night? Is the sun just coming up? Is the sun just going down? Choose something that feels good to you. And now you say, who's here? And you say, I am, of course. Who else is there? Now, no one else needs to be there, but someone else can be there if you like. And then you say, what kind of moods are we in? Now, we want to remind you, this is your virtual reality. And the whole purpose of this virtual reality is to cause you to activate vibrations within you that put you in the place of allowing well-being. So, you wouldn't create a virtual reality where you're building a new house and build it with a leaky roof and then bring repair people into your virtual reality to fix the leaking roof. In your virtual reality, you can make it just the way you want it to be. And the reason that we are giving this to you at the outset here is because there is a tendency to have something in your life that is not going well, and then say, okay, Abraham told me about this new virtual reality, I'll go there and I'll fix it. The problem with that is that you take the vibration of what's going wrong into your virtual reality. So it doesn't work as the tool that you're really wanting it to be.